And our greatest act of disobedience is to vote. Our greatest act to lift up our communities is to vote. Our greatest way to protest what is currently happening in America is to vote. Our greatest way to show up and be heard is to vote. And so I ask all of you, what will you be doing on November 3rd? Voting on November 3rd.
Welcome back. I'll tell you, it's been quite a day today. When we discuss the issues of the moment, there is so much to consider. And one of the most exciting things we see within LULAC is the engagement and the activity and the power, the persuasive power of young people. Well, the environment certainly is front and center right now all across this world. And this is why this next conversation is one you don't want to miss. The environment and change that is taking place right now because the energy and the vitality of young people are engaged in it. That's the subject. Our moderator is co-chair of the Environmental Committee here at LULAC, Lindsay Luis, who is one of the leaders in our organization, and she continues to be an advocate for the environment. Listen into her conversation with experts that also care deeply about what's going on in our time. Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Luis. I'm the co-chair of the LULAC Environmental Committee. We are here today because we're putting together a panel called Dream Big and Green, Young People Driving the Climate Change Action, AHORA. This panel just talks about a lot of issues related to climate change and how these are impacting every person on this earth, from rising temperatures to changing sea levels to more catastrophic natural disasters at the topic of daily discussions and concerns. What this panel's focus is to explore the tangible and measurable effects of climate change and how Latinos can be engaged, informed, and help strike the balance between the economic and environmental realities. The panel will discuss climate change, the Green New Deal, and other proposed legislation on environmental issues. Thankfully, we have some panelists here with us today. We can go ahead and have each of them introduce themselves, however they would like to describe what the great work that they're doing right now. Jolie, you can go first.
So, Piali, nanotoka Juelei, Wanoson Kiska Organista, Nieva Chapultepec, Mexico. Hello, my name is Juelei Organista. I am originally from La Ciudad de Mexico, Chapultepec. I live now in Salt Lake City, Utah, where it's very dry. And I introduced myself in Nahuatl, which is one of the indigenous languages in Mexico. And I do this because I was challenged by one of my grandmas to do it. And I do want to recognize that where I live is the Eastern Shoshone Ute, Shoshone Bonut, and Ute tribe lands. So the things I do specifically in this space, I'm the elected National Vice President of Youth in LULAC. And I'm one of the founders and co-chairing with Lindsay, the Environmental Committee. As the youth and young adults of LULAC, we are very concerned about the lack of urgency that our civil rights organization had for a while. And we're super happy now that we're proactive as an organization with environmental justice, having this committee. And so this panel is going to be fun. It's going to be great. And I'm super excited to have it. So, gracias.
Felipe.
Hi, everybody. Felipe Benitez. I'm the executive director of Corazon Latino. I'm a proud immigrant. I'm a proud dad. And Corazon Latino work or mission is to really reconnect Latino and communities of colors with nature. And I say reconnect, not connect, because we are already part of nature. It's in our DNA. It's part of who we are in our culture. Just sometimes we need those reminders. And we are fortunate enough to work in various states as well as Puerto Rico. And our work is driven really on providing equitable access, give the opportunity for families, for individuals, for communities to enjoy our public lands. And with that also to become stewards of the land, and more important, to become warriors to defend our Madre Tierra.
Thank you, Felipe. Juanita?
Hi, everyone. I'm Juanita Constable. I am also an immigrant, although I'm from Canada, not south of the US border. I'm calling today from just outside Washington, DC, and I work for the Natural Resources Defense Council. I am a senior advocate for climate and health, which means I spend just about all my time advocating for policies that help improve our public health system and also healthcare. I'm really worried about the current collision between COVID-19 and climate change. So I'm excited to talk today about all the interconnected issues that we care about. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Juanita. And as Jolie mentioned, we are co-chairs of the first environmental LULAC committee. And so it's something very important to us young people. I currently serve as the immediate past youth president. I served my turn about 2 years ago. And so that's how I became involved in LULAC a bit more at the national level, and thankfully have been able to not only push those efforts here locally in my own community from Vancouver, Washington, to nationally at the youth board level. So thank you all panelists for being here. Why don't we get started on our questions? What is the current status of efforts to fight or slow down climate change and prevent pollution and environmental destruction? And we can have Juanita, Felipe, and Joeli.
Sure, thanks for that question. So we are seeing some positive advancements at the state and local level. For example, just about 3 weeks ago, 15 Northeast states all signed a big agreement to cut dangerous pollution from buses and big trucks, which doesn't sound that exciting, but those are one of the biggest sources of climate change pollution in the Northeast. At the federal level, though, it's totally a different story. Over the last few years, we've seen the Trump administration roll back almost 70 environmental and health safeguards, and they're working on another 30, including withdrawing from the Paris Agreement. So there's a lot more to be done at the federal level. And in the next few years, we're going to have to fix a lot of the damage that's been done, as well as finding ways to ambitiously move forward.
Thank you.
I would totally agree with Juanita that at the federal level, we're on defense mode, to put it in a very elegant way. We need to really continue to rally and protect those safeguards that exist, and make sure that they're not decimated, because at the end of the day, these safeguards and attacks on these particular regulations have a direct effect on our communities, whether it's air, whether it's water, you name it. I also want to highlight that it's at the local level, a lot is being made, and we're very excited about that. But also at a corporate level, at a business level, I think in an absence of leadership from our federal government, the business community has stepped up to the plate and really committed to really figure out ways that as a company, as an organization, as individuals can really help in reaching goals established during their Paris Agreement. I mean, there's a lot of efforts out there, which, as Juanita said, it is something that gives us hope. And another thing that gives me hope is to have folks like you, young people, really pushing, because that's what we need. Some of us have been a lot of time in this, some less, but it's really the new blood that it's making us really push for real change. And this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We have a lot to do, and we need to continue. Obviously, the COVID has derailed a lot of the existing programs, of the existing efforts, but at the same time, COVID has made it very evident how those disparities within environmental justice, within health justice, within just economic justice are affecting the communities that we're part of, the communities, the frontline communities. So it is very important to continue. It's very important to find the time to regenerate, to hug a tree. I'm a tree hugger, to be in connection with nature, and continue, because it is a struggle. I don't want to put it in a struggle. It is a movement that has been building for many years, and we'll still have a few more years to go. But it is important that success is within reach. And as Al Gore put it, it's a moral issue. It's really about what's right and what's wrong. Also, Pope Francis talked about it as in his encyclical. So we're on the right side of things, and I think we will see advancements, and I think we will succeed.
Thank you, Felipe. Jueli?
Yeah, so our current status, that's the question. Tomorrow's August, so it's ridiculous. And you know what? A year ago, 12 months ago, the United Nations had a historical conference called the Civil Society Conference, and it was actually held here in Salt Lake City. It was the first time they ever held a conference outside of New York City, but in the United States. And there, I was the co-author of a historical document called the Youth Climate Compact. And the Youth Climate Compact is 25 points of what everyone in every generation that is alive right now should be doing to address, to, as the question says, to fight or slow down climate change, or even specifically prevent pollution or environmental destruction. And yeah, it's a big thing. It's a big problem, but individually, we all have things that we can actually do, tangible things. And so I would suggest you look up the 2019 United Nations Youth Climate Compact, which has a lot of cool points that I'm sure we'll be bringing up. Some of us will be bringing up different points. And that's what was historic 12 months ago, a year ago. Also a year ago was the historical first time ever United Nations Youth Climate Summit, which was a summit just on climate, and it was led and organized by youth. And there, I was a guest speaker where we spoke about not only the Youth Climate Compact, but the declarations that youth have created, and how there was a critical mass at that time where youth were literally protesting every Friday to not go to school because of this problem of climate action needing to happen now. You know, luckily we're not even in schools anymore. We're not even going to schools. We've kind of all boycotting them. But the reality is, this is real. There's so many studies that say that we have less than 10 years before we have to do drastic measures to change things. And so that's why I think what the current state now is, 12 months later, after that summit, after all that critical mass of leadership from youth, is, yeah, it's sad. We're going backwards. The United States is going backwards. But the reality is, time moves forward, and time will continue to move forward. And the generation that we have right now, I think I'm very confident in, including, you know, the generations I'm a part of, to move forward with the action that needs to happen. And policy is important, but the current status right now is there's still fires. The fires hit home real badly. People in the United States, tornadoes keep coming, floods keep coming, you know, hurricanes, and people can't really ignore it anymore. And so the destruction is happening, and in a couple of months we're going to have the hurricane season again. So we'll see how people think about this, and it's put it to their faces once they're losing their homes, and what they're thinking about all these different, how am I going to vote for? Who am I going to vote for? How am I going to get people accountable that are in election, that are running or already in positions of power? But I think the environment's the biggest advocate for itself. And we're just going to have to continue to listen to it and push and support it, because, you know, in the end, we're the ones that have to keep our own people, our own species accountable for the harm we've been causing for la tierra madre, no? So that's what I would think about what the current status is. And there's a lot of work from a lot of people, a lot of generations, and of course, Mother Earth.
Lindsay, may I add something real quick?
Of course, Juanita.
Thank you. I just have to say I am impressed beyond measure with the current youth movement. And I think if my generation had brought even a fraction of that energy and that passion to this fight, when I was in my 20s, we would be, or in my teens, we would be in a far different place than we are now. So I just want to say thank you to all of you youth activists who are out there every day fighting so, so hard.
We needed that, Juanita. We totally needed that because we were not doing what it takes. So it is very important, and I'm really, really thankful for that movement and for like nos pusieron a trabajar, and I love that.
Thank you all for your comments. Yes, it is. Times are changing. For the second question, it is a two-part question. We can start with Joelei, Felipe, and Juanita. How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted efforts to organize the community around climate change? Are there any parallels between the COVID-19 response and how this administration has treated climate change? Really?
I think this is a great question for what we're just talking about. So, 12 months ago, where were we? We're doing a lot. Like, people can't mass protest really anymore like we did, but, protests have their role. The COVID-19 has exposed problems that have already existed, like in everything. I'm an educator, so it's exposed how badly we treat youth with standardized tests, and we don't need those. And like teachers, what we expect from teachers. But when it comes to the climate action movement or the environmental justice movement, like it's exposed that, as mentioned earlier, like Earth is going to talk to us and make us reevaluate our relationship to it, and remember that it's a living thing, right? We are living things, and people get upset when animals are hurt, dogs, poor dogs, but like, Earth is like the home for all of us. And the ways we are violating human rights, not only to ourselves, is pretty bad. But when it comes to environmental justice or injustices that are perpetuated by being passive or not taking action, we're seeing that right now. And COVID-19 has really exposed how people that have always been at the forefront of struggle are being the ones with the disproportionate amounts of deaths. And with this, because they're already, it's a respiratory problem. And so when you have asthma like me, and I live by a factory that's polluting, and then I get the coronavirus, I will die faster, even if I'm 20, in the 20s, right? I'm not 20, I'm 28. But you know what? It's a problem, or even youth that have asthma. And so I think it's real to think about how the pandemic has exposed what's there, and more importantly, in terms of the administration and treating climate change. In the beginning, it was really interesting to see. I live in a conservative state. I live in Utah. And the way in the beginning, people not treating it as a real thing, denying climate change, denying the pandemic, it has effects. And history will literally be written during these times. And it will be very clear that denying a problem has never fixed the problem. And so that's, I'm just going to leave it there.
Thank you, Joelle. Felipe?
Well, the parallel says that at least the current administration has completely abdicated the leadership role and any role that may play in both crises. That's a true. That's a reality, and that's what we need to face as Americans and as citizens of this planet, not citizens, inhabitants of this planet. At the same time, I'm always the optimist. I'm always trying to find the right point. I think we've seen, this COVID has shifted our conscience, has rocked our own beliefs in everything. We have been transformed, and I see it in a positive way. I mean, Black Matter was a first tipping point, but I do think that that's going to continue in various ways, various manifestations. Let me tell you a little bit what Corazon Latino, how we have responded to COVID. Obviously, we on all good conscience, we cannot encourage folks to protect protect the environment, or we can still do it, but when there's other basic needs that are out there. And we actually, the moment some programs started to come out of the CARES Act, when there was this food boxes to families, we jumped into that, because that's how we really support our community, how we build a movement, and how we make evident that all of this, what Yolegi was referring to, everything is interconnected. So we want to make sure that we are continue to empower, to educate, and to inspire our community. And I think that's the biggest opportunity that we see. Also, things like the Green New Deal or Medicare for All, that were like, oh my God, that's never gonna happen. Suddenly, Congress was able to find trillions of dollars to solve and to put it, which is conversations where we're simply not even, were non-starters in the past. So I want to bring back to one of the earliest points that Jolie was saying. And yes, we only have probably less than 10 years, but I want to see it in a positive way. We still have 10 years. We have the technology. We have the science. We have, we're now starting to see the political will. And if not, we do it through our vote. We build that political will. So and we have a strong movement that it's being renascent, or it's being rebuilt because of you guys, because of youth. So I'm trying to be really positive, because this is a moment where, yes, it took a pandemic that basically closed the country down, that closed the world down, that it's unfortunately taking a big toll on our society. And as Jolie mentioned, it is Mother Nature talking to us. It is saying, hey, dudes, we have a problem, and if you don't take care of it, I will take care of it, and you're probably not going to like it. So I have a lot of hope. I think we have a lot of things, and the only way to really move this is by working together, by building what many consider as collective impact. It's the individual actions that are brought together, it's that create that ultimate and that systemic change. I'm gonna pass it to Juanita.
Yeah, that was very good to hear, Felipe. Thank you.
Yes, excellent. And you both have made most of my points, so I'll just add a couple more short things. When it comes to the parallels between the COVID response and the climate response, one of the things that I found most distressing, common thread, is really this blaming the victim thing. It's, if you look at what happened to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, President Trump blamed the island for its massive power outage and people dying from the storm, which makes no sense. And during COVID, we're seeing Black and brown people being blamed for trying to go to work and making sure we have food to eat, or that people are taken care of in hospitals. So that sort of deflecting blame is a problem that will not be fixed within this current administration. But when it comes to what's happening at the broader level, one of the things that I found really encouraging is that people who did not formally see the connections between climate justice and racial justice and housing and healthcare are now starting to go, oh yeah, those are actually connected, and we need to tackle them together rather than as separate issues, or worse, to pit them against each other, which I think has happened a lot in the past. And I know we'll be talking about the Green New Deal later, but when it first came out, a lot of people within the climate community said, well, that's got a lot of non-climate things in it. This is not connected. But now I think they're singing a different song.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Juanita. A lot has changed since then. For this next question, we'll start with Felipe. Corazon Latino has done a lot to bring advocacy to Latinx folks. And so the question is, how can the Latino community participate in environmentalist efforts or advocate for action on climate change? Juanita's next, and Joelei last.
I mean, we can start as simple as planting a tree. That's the most revolutionary act that you can do right now. It's plant a tree, care for that tree. Then talk to your elected officials about that tree, about the need of more trees in your community. If you have the possibility to register to vote, participate in the election, and not only in this one, in every election moving forward. And if you're not eligible to vote, find out that neighbor, that family member, that friend that is eligible to vote, and make sure that they do. I think that's the reality is that there's so many things, even social media, talking to your elected official. There's so many ways that takes you 5 minutes, 10 minutes of your time, and it makes a difference. Nowadays, COVID obviously has brought us to more indoors and less face-to-face, but it is a great opportunity to mobilize from your phone, from your computer, talk to your friends. So I think on my perspective, it's really about advocating for more green spaces, advocating for more, as I mentioned, trees in your community, because that both helps you in a personal way, helps your family in your in their well-being, helps your community. There's a concept that brought by American Forest called tree equity. And it's the reality that if you see communities or neighborhoods or zip codes that have more tree canopy, more trees, they're usually, their health is better, their asthma, cardiovascular, where in places like LA, where you go to other communities where they don't have that access, or that many trees, it is the health of the community suffers. So that very basic thing brings a difference that can be translated into dollars, can be translated in well-being, many things. So for me, starting with planting a tree, obviously do it the right way, find somebody, an organization that helps you care for that tree, and then making sure that your community has. That would be the way I would inspire. Again, it's something simple. It's something that we all can be familiar, and it's also a bipartisan issue. Nobody's gonna contest you that's not good to plant trees.
I agree. I actually had the experience once to plant a tree, and it was therapeutic in a way, because you see, thankfully here in the Pacific Northwest, we see so many, but actually being able to say, I've had part in helping this grow. And your input on social media, I mean, it's about planting that seed, right? That metaphorical seed of advocacy into people's lives. So that was great, Felipe.
And I'm sorry to do this, but I think you mentioned something very important, which is the reciprocity with nature. If you take care of nature, nature will take care of you. And that's not just a tree hugging or like, oh, it makes me feel good. No, there's scientific data, scientific research that shows that being in nature helps improve your well-being, boost your immune system, reduces stress. I mean, many benefits. It's a reciprocity. The more you give to Mother Nature will care for you, and vice versa.
So I totally second the need to talk to family and friends and decision makers. It turns out that Latinos are already much better at that than non-Latinos. There's more engagement with public officials, more conversations with family and friends. So my challenge to everyone is a little bit of a stretch goal, and to find one issue that you really care about and go deeper on it. And it's really hard to pick because there's so many, and there's a lot of competing non-environmental issues that also need our attention. So I recommend picking an issue that can solve multiple challenges at once. The green space one is a perfect example. Provides shade, helps cool off neighborhoods, sucks up carbon from the air, so it helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's all good. Transportation is another really good one. You can provide people more safe and affordable options to get where they need to go, fight climate change, and also reduce temperature in neighborhoods that are already too hot. So find that one thing that really speaks to you and that your community really needs, and go deep on that, and keep going back to your decision makers again and again and again.
And so for me, when I was at the Youth Climate Summit, I was representing kind of the Latinx voice in the United States. They had a similar question, which was like, what can we do as a population? And that panel specifically that I'm thinking of was on consumerism, like, which, you know, we in the United States and the world, we live in a consumer-based kind of economy where what you consume really is very impactful, whether it's like, it's kind of like a vote, like you boycotting something is a big deal. And so whether people are boycotting Goya right now or whatever, if you boycott it or not, it doesn't matter if you are or not. It makes a difference. Like, it makes a difference if you're boycotting something. So during the pandemic, which kind of gets to environmental justice stuff too, LULAC, we've been there's an organization that's on our corporate alliance board, and there, you know, we have good relationships with our corporate, you know, partners. But if they do something wrong, we're gonna tell them, and we're gonna help them realize it. And Tyson was one of them. That was when their meat packing industry, as like the high meat packing industry leaders, Latinx people that work in those factories with the coronavirus, they were not doing what they needed to do. And our relationship with them was very impactful to make sure that we can actually help them. But we could have been like, hey, y'all boycott Tyson. There was a general national movement of being like, let's boycott meat, which in environmental justice, that's actually kind of a good thing to just generally help reduce the meat consumption. I think that it's a good thing. But it helped us realize what kind of labor is already being pushed to create what we consume and is already unsustainable. And meat was one of those. I eat meat. I'm not gonna say don't eat meat. I'm saying you think about why you eat meat, and then what products you eat. And then whether it's meat, whether it's some sort of other plastic material that you use, or whether it's paper, like, you gotta understand, you as the Latinx community, which is like one of the top, literally for sure, top 10, top 5 consumer base, like, they have power in the world, not only in the United States, but the world. So if you choose a product, you are making a big impact, whether it's positive or negative for environmental justice, whether it's positive or negative for our community and how we're exploited, and positive or negative in the way people get rich out of our consuming, right? So you got to think about that. And I think that's one of the things for sure our community can do. And the more you're aware about how and what our community is being exploited to in the field, the meatpacking industry, and the cleaning products, or any kind of thing, the more we can understand how and why you should buy or not buy certain products. So that's what I'm just going to say. I'm not ever going to tell you what to buy or not buy. But I'm going to let you know that you need to be a smart consumer and know what your impact is.
I really
vote for with your ballot or vote with your wallet. Love that.
Yep.
That's true. Our money power, what we spend our money on, is so important, and it's more of a direct impact. As a vote goes in about over months, over years, but what we decide to spend our money on and focus on is very, very crucial. This next question is for Juanita. How would the Green New Deal affect climate change and the lives of American Latinx people if it was passed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Green New Deal is a really important step because it calls for the kinds of major investments in social infrastructure that we need to help communities not only protect themselves from the current impacts of climate change, because climate change is very much a here and now issue, it's not just a future issue, but it would also help people survive and thrive in a radically new economy. You know, a lot of fossil fuel workers are going to be losing their jobs. How do we make sure that those people land well, have good paying jobs that sustain their families, and not get left behind, even further behind than they are now? The thing to remember about the Green New Deal, though, is that right now it's just a framework. It's not actually a set of specific policy proposals. So passing it would be the start of a much more detailed and critical conversation that we'll all need to engage in to make sure that it doesn't get taken in the wrong direction under some greenwashing umbrella of being, you know, the Green New Deal.
Thank you, Juanita. That was very, very insightful. This next question is for Joelei and Felipe. Jole, you can start. How does the Green New Deal compare with Joe Biden's $2 trillion plan to fight climate change?
So I'm going first. I think the pandemic has helped Joe Biden realize that we can't go back to whatever wanting to go back is. The last debate they had, and I'm gonna just be very like transparent. I was a Bernie supporter since 2015, and so like I'm just gonna say that. But the reality is, Joe Biden in the last debate ever that he had, which was with Bernie, it was really early in the pandemic, so they already were physically distancing, but he said something, I don't remember exactly, but it was something along the lines like, people don't want a revolution, people just want plans or something. I don't know what he said, but it was like really, it fell flat on its face. And I think he's realized within these next past months that you got to be a candidate if you're going to, specifically environmental justice stuff. And this proposal that he had and still kind of generally has is not enough. Like, you got to think big, and the pandemic has helped them disrupt and be like, you got to think big because things are big. And Obama's era is something that was a time that will never exist again. Even when I was born is a time that never will exist again. And I have a niece that was born on New Year's, January, before the pandemic. When she was born, like that was a time, even though she was like a very recent baby that's less than 1 year, is a time that we will never be able to go back to. And so going forward, especially what Felipe mentioned, I'm glad we have less than 10 years or around 10 years, but the reality is we got to be very visionary on how we want to move forward. And that's why this framework, which is the Green New Deal, is a framework. In terms of bills and the specifics, the money, whatever people want to say, then yeah, we got to be very purposeful on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And $2 trillion, it's very something as a normal, like regular person that I don't have more than like, $1,000 in my bank account. Like, I don't understand what $2 trillion means. Like, I don't, if someone says 3 trillion or 3 million, I don't know the difference. And so when it comes to policymakers who know the difference and the people advocating for it, they're going to have to be very clear about, where is it coming from? But in the terms, we need vision. We need vision from people and whoever wants to lead and whoever's running for office. And then from there, we will go into the specifics, because I don't think we need to be fighting internally or nationally about those specifics now. That's not the purpose, because we don't even know next month of how every school district's going to go into class in those specifics. Like, we got to just be visionary now and have hope. So if we had the Si Se Puede from Dolores Huerta again, and then Obama kind of taking it like Si Se Puede kind of mentality, where it's like, we're going to move forward and we're just going to do it, but then we'll be specifically having an understanding what those things mean. I think that's better and healthier for our community, and is what's going to rally people. But for me, like I said, the difference, I'm not going to tell you the difference, but the difference for me, I think, is just vision.
Thank you.
Well, I see both frameworks, both blueprints, and I will add a third one, a recent report that the Select Committee on Climate Change from the House of Representatives put out as great starting points. They're not end goals, they're starting points. That's the baseline where we need to start our conversation. We find what it's common. We need to phase out fossil fuels. We need to transition to 100% clean energy. We need to bring environmental justice to the front of the debate, not the end, or not like, oh yeah, let's check that box. And so, I mean, I welcome them. I'm again, it's something that as Jolie was mentioning, we probably would have not been talking about a year ago. It was completely different. And I remember, as Juanita mentioned, when Green New Deal came out, like, oh my God, this is too much. No, we're not gonna get behind her. She's crazy. Now, like, no, this is really the minimum. So I think it's a great launching pad. I'm glad that it's happening. I'm glad that some of the debates sinked in and get, I mean, even the way with all the not a big fan of billionaires, but Tom Steyer saying like this will be my top priority in the first 100 days. Well, that's something that we can build from. If I certainly hope that if Joe Biden is elected, that he will do that. But if not, we still have a Congress. We still have elected officials at a state level, at a municipal level, at a local level that we need to make sure that we get those that are that align with our views, with our priorities, and with the well-being of our communities, and then hold them accountable. I think Jolie mentioned it too. It's really about that. It's not just get there and then ya se me olvidó and see you next election. No, it's holding them accountable from day one. And we also need to have a mandate. We need to get our community to vote and to be there and to say, hey, we're here, whatever the outcome is, wherever the composition of Congress, whoever the next president is, we played a role. And therefore we have a voice, and we want to make sure that you, as our elected officials, our employees, are looking for our community's best interest. So again, that's what I see. It's really a great launch pad.
This is the beginning, right? That's what we have to start with. That was very insightful, all of you. Thank you so much. We'll start with Juanita, Felipe, and then Joelle on this last question. Are there any environmental bills in Congress or in a state level that we can start fighting for as Latinx folks?
Yes, there are a bunch, but I want to pull out one particular example that currently there's a bill in the House of Representatives that's just been introduced. So we need to get this bill passed in the House and then a companion bill in the Senate. And the bill would direct the Occupational Safety and Health Administration to create an enforceable heat safety standard for all workers. And why do we need this? Well, heat waves are getting worse, more frequent, more severe, and that puts thousands of workers all across the United States at grave risk of heat-related illnesses and deaths. And the biggest impact falls on Latino communities because they disproportionately are represented in the types of essential industries that are most vulnerable to heat. Right now, there's just no good way for OSHA to hold employers accountable and make workplaces safe from heat. So getting this bill passed would be a major boon to public health, and especially for the health of outdoor workers. Well, indoor workers too.
I believe I have heard of that bill, LULAC. Last time we were in the legislative session last year, we had a lot of lobbyists from all over the country, youth lobbyists actually, go on and talk about that bill. So thank you for bringing that up, Juanita.
I think, I mean, there's a wide variety and there's a lot. Obviously, we need to be also very mindful that we are about to enter a lame duck session and a lot of things may pass and may not. However, we have opportunities to set the stage for the next Congress to make sure that these bills, like Juanita mentioned, are something that already have a baseline and something that have support. In the more immediate, I would think that we really need to pay attention to what's happening with the COVID bills recovery, because there's a lot of money there that could go for public health, for infrastructure, for transportation, and there's the devil's in the detail, or the opportunities in the detail, because that's where we can make sure that certain priorities, certain elements that will help in the overall, like for example, what I was mentioning, making sure that we have more green infrastructure as part of the more trees, more parks, more renewable energy in this bill, that will help and that will add. So I would say that, I mean, it's a little bit tedious because it's hundreds, if not thousands of pages of legislation, but there's people that are pretty good at looking into specifics and just getting and working, holding your elected officials accountable. I mean, Utah, in Washington, D.C., we don't have that. Right now I'm in Arizona, so kind of do something and just saying them, hey, this is important for me. And guess what? You guys are going to be either in November applying again for your job or in the next 2 years. So we're going to hold you accountable and we're paying attention and we are a strong community. We are we vote and we mobilize and we organize. So I will be very mindful of that. This is an opportunity to really rebuild better, to really do things better. Where this crisis, this moment that nobody expected, it really opens opportunities to do things better. So let's use that opportunity. But it does take discipline, it takes paying attention, and again, it's not in our top priorities right now. Right now, figure out if we're going back to school or not, if I can go out or not, of wearing a mask, things like that. But it is important to also look into that angle, because guess what? There's others there's lobbyists, there's interest that they're paying a lot of attention into this, and they're going to try to get either for the good or for the bad. They're going to try to use this opportunity to grow whatever or to advance their priorities.
Thank you, Felipe. It's time to move to our call of action, but I want to give Joy Lee a quick moment to say if there's any specific bills in Congress or at the state level that we need to know about.
Yeah, so I actually learned about one called 30 by 30. So resolution, it's super cool. I live in Utah, where it's like geography wise, like huge, like it's a lot. You can fit a lot of the eastern states in Utah, right? Geographically. And so we got to protect the land. Like the resolution focuses on by 2030, which is 10 years. I think like 10's the number. But like, we want to protect strongly 30%, at least 30% of the land and waters, oceans that the United States kind of has, because there's so much land grabbing. I'm actually glad that is it Oklahoma, right? Is it that gave back land to the Supreme Court to the indigenous people? That's great. But we got to just kind of like leave land, which is probably indigenous people's land, to be land and just not capitalize on it. Let it be. Whether it's protected through national state parks or stuff, like they need to be protected. I love Utah because of that. I'm actually going to go, is it tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. I'm going to go to, or this weekend, to the southern Utah, which is like, we have Zions National Park. I'm going to go see the land because I hate being in my room all day. And so I got to experience the land that we have. And it's very, as Felipe was mentioning earlier, it's healing, right? There's a relationship we have with it. And even though this is not technically where I'm from Mexico, there's a lot of similarities to Utah and Mexico City in terms of the valleys, in terms of the heat and dryness. And we don't have a volcano in Utah, but it's nice to be in the desert. To me, the desert is something that's unique to me, and I love it, and it's just beautiful. And so that resolution is important to pass, because just like child labor laws, if you don't put them, there's gonna be exploitation. We know. If no one says don't exploit children by law, then they're gonna do it. If no one says protect at least 30% of the land and water, they're going to take it away and exploit it. So we got to say it, and we got to pass resolutions. That's how government and apparently a society works. But that's one that you can think of, I can think of, and we should be paying attention to. And similarly to local areas, there's a lot of local laws that you can think of that could have similar things, where it's like protecting the land, the air, the water, the animals that are there. I live right next to the Great Salt Lake, where there's a lot of wetlands, and there's a great land grab by the state to create the inland port, which you might have heard of. And that's literally like, I go on the roof of my house and I can see where they're going to build the inland port and destroy the wetlands there, right? So like, if no one says something, there's no laws passed to prevent that, there's going to be exploitation.
Yeah, thank you, Jordi. That was very insightful. Let's move on to our call of action or any closing remarks. Felipe, would you like to start?
Absolutely. Well, again, I'm a tree hugger, and I would encourage everybody to. It just takes 5 minutes of your time. If somebody tells me that you don't have 5 minutes of your time to connect with nature every day, or at least every other day, it's just a big lie. And it doesn't need, I mean, if you're lucky enough, like Yolehi, that he has access to are the great outdoors, fantastic. If it's in a city, if it's in a tree, even if it's a plant in your house, those benefits from nature, those benefits from the land really help you. And it's really, in this moment, we need it. We need it more than ever to reconnect, to be one with nature, and to protect nature, as I have mentioned. I would encourage you guys to do that, and to share with your family, share it with your loved ones. It's important to take care of ourselves. And again, it's literally, if you just go hug a tree, there's actually the trees produce a substance called phytoncides, which actually help trees defend against diseases. Well, those same substances help you actually boost your immune system. So it's not just like the tree hug or like no, it's really, there's that reciprocity. And I think the only big thing is, if you're eligible, register to vote. If you're not, find somebody that's eligible to vote. And this is the most important and the most consequential. And I know we hear that every 4 years, but this is truly it. So I would do that. Connect with nature, register to vote, and just and just keep doing what you guys are doing. I just want to again thank you, because it is very inspiring, and I'm so grateful to see that these panels now are being led by youth. It's something that we have seen, and the environmental movement. It's pretty tough. There's a lot of people in the that have done this for a long time, and they feel that this is how it should be, and to crack those crack open and bringing your voice, bringing your point of view, bringing your enthusiasm. That's what we need. And really, the environmental movement is becoming much more diverse, and we love it, and we need to push for it. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Felipe. Juanita, any closing remarks before we wrap up?
I'm basically going to echo what Felipe said again, which is, don't let anyone tell you that being an environmentalist has to look a certain way, live a certain way, or act a certain way. Bring your strength to this fight in whatever way you can, and don't let anyone subject you to some sort of arbitrary purity test that no one can possibly meet. And that's all I'll say.
Thank you, Juanita. Short and simple. Very good. Joeli, any last remarks or call to action?
Yeah, so I teach a course at the university level that focuses on decolonization. So my challenge or action item, or would be call to action would be decolonization. Like, really search what that means, because some people work on decolonizing their food, which reduces a lot of meat and cheese and stuff. But you could decolonize your just consciousness in general of like how you approach things, which is like what Felipe is talking about, like really how plants are within your realm and physical space. Like decolonizing the way you interact or have time or breathe. Like, just figure out what decolonization means for you, because it's for sure environmental justice focused usually. And also it revolves around some sort of work of resistance, that we all need people to be working around resistance, whether it's around racial justice work or environmental justice work, or gender equality, just any kind of justice work, right? And so I really challenge you to understand what decolonization means for you personally, and then from there you can engage in different ways, and it's going to be really cool. And one of those ways is going to be for sure probably very healing. So that's my call of action.
Awesome. Thank you, Joeli. And you all had amazing calls to action. Very insightful what we all had to say. I think we could prolong this conversation so much, but that's where the work comes in. So thank you all for being here today and sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Sí, sé que tenemos todos los factores de riesgo.
But we also have all it takes to fight
COVID-19. El coronavirus está afectando a la comunidad latina más rápido que a otros grupos.
To beat COVID-19,
we all need to follow 4 steps.
Quédate en casa.
If you have to go to work,
mantén 6 pies de distancia con los demás.
Usa máscara.
Y protege tus manos.
Lávate esas manos.
Por 20 segundos o más.
Hashtag nosotros contra el COVID.